Masz ten uśmiech, który ja uwielbiam. I pływamy sobie w nadprzestrzeniach. Nie wiadomo, która to już sfera. Myślałam, że tam wyżej to nic nie ma. Takich scenariuszy nigdzie nie widzę.
Upside down, and I'ma blow your cover. So tell me, what's in it for me? I really gotta know what's in it for me. This ain't a one-man show. You're into my life, you come and you go, ain't happy about it, so I gotta know what's in it for me. I got no time for a hit and run. I need more than a little fun, 'cause I only play for keeps. I gotta know what's it all about. Go ahead, spit it out. Say, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I really gotta know. Yeah, this ain't a one-man show. You're into my life, you got me, you go. Happy about it, so I gotta know what's.
Nikt mnie nie uprzedzał, nie ostrzegał jak będzie i nikt nie podał przyczyny. Nikt nie powiedział słowa, lecz będzie wystawiono mnie pod drzwi. Tobie niczego nie poradzę, nie znajdę podpowiedzi. Mogę na drogę poklepać cię w ramię, popatrz do góry i lecisz.
Tylko raz powiedz tak, a zacznie się początek. Sam sobie dajesz znak, wybierasz drogi proste.
się, że miało być łatwiej, prościej i szybciej, zabawniej i ładniej. Miałam wiedzieć, którą wybrać stronę. Mówili, skoczysz i nie utoniesz. Będziesz wiedział, gdzie góra, gdzie dół. Poczujesz, jak równo dzielić na pół. Od razu zrozumiesz, że lepszy to niekoniecznie i nie zawsze ten silniejszy.
Oh, the wind whistles down the cold dark street tonight, and the people, they were dancing to the music vibe. And the boys chase the girls with the girls in their hair, while the shouting men who just sit way over there. And the songs, they get louder, each one better than before. And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, or where you gonna sleep tonight? And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, or where you gonna sleep tonight? Or where you gonna sleep tonight? So you're heading down the road in your taxi for 4, and you're waiting outside Jimmy's front door, but nobody's in and nobody's home till 4. So you're sitting there with nothing to do, talking about Robert Riger and his motley crew, and where you gonna go and where you gonna sleep tonight. And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your head is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, and where you gonna sleep tonight. And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your head is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, and where you gonna sleep tonight. Where you gonna sleep tonight? And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, where you gonna sleep tonight? And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, where you gonna sleep tonight? And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides. Where you gonna go, where you gonna go, where you gonna sleep tonight? And you're singing the songs, thinking this is a life. And you wake up in the morning and your hip is twisted sides.
Jedź.
Tired of being what you want me to be, feeling so faithless, lost under the surface. Don't know what you're expecting of me, but under the pressure
Left its scenes while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence.